we have to figure out what we enjoy, what we're good at, and then what you think I'm good at, also as partners. And then everything else, we're going to start hiring out over time. I mean, we don't really have the capital to hire out like everything, like all at once. But we were in a phase where we've been buying properties, we got enough capital, we could hire out a few positions and then kind of plan on doing more over time.
Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.
Thank you to everyone who is a dedicated listener to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate podcast. Just want to give you a heads up that today we had some audio issues on actually 3 or 4 episodes that we recorded in a row. They were such good episodes, and the guests were so kind, of course, to share their time and insight with us that I couldn't ask them to re-record it. So we're going to go ahead and publish these episodes. I am aware of it. The audio is not what I like to put out, but running a daily show, at some point in time, we're going to run into a hiccup along the way. And today is one of those days where I get to share my mistakes and hiccups right along with you. But again, it's a great episode. You can hear the guest a lot better than you can hear me, and it's just part of what it is that we do. Nevertheless, here it is. Thanks so much for tuning in. Certainly appreciate it.
Eli Vo is a retired veteran where he proudly served his country for 21 years as a paratrooper in the U.S. Army and later as an IT specialist in the Air Force. He co-founded the Atlas Multifamily Group with his partners, Chris and Nathan. They are based out of Texas. Eli, welcome to the show.
Man, it is great being here. Thanks for having me on, Sam.
Hey, man, the pleasure's mine. Eli, there are 3 questions I ask every guest who comes on the show in 90 seconds or less. Can you tell me, where did you start? Where are you now? And how did you get there?
Yeah, sure. So kind of like what you mentioned before, I'm prior military, spent 21 years in, about 15 years into my career. My wife and I kind of realized we needed extra income to come in to replace whenever I go to retire. And so about that time, we started buying up houses. We got to a few, did very well with them, but we're like, hey, at this pace, we're not going to be able to hit our goals. So I'm going to go drive around town one day, and this is in Fort Worth, and I saw an apartment complex, and I was like, man, who buys those things? Like that'd be way more efficient to own something like that, Yeah, rather than like 40 or 50 houses spread across town. And so we started kind of networking and kind of learning who buys them, how you buy them. And then we joined a mentorship group about 2018. And now we own and operate 815 doors across 3 states, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. And we're actually under a contract now that's going to close in the middle of next month. So after we close on that deal, it's 200 units in Texas. We're going to be just north of 1,000 doors.
That's awesome, man. 1,000 doors, 4 years. What are some things that have been surprises to you, I guess, that you look at, you go, gosh, I can't believe we're here. And then I guess in a good and a bad way, what are some surprises, I guess, the last 4 years have brought you? Surprises.
Okay. Yeah. So there's tons. I'll say that we started our marketing late in the process, right? I think it was kind of like our mindset was just to kind of go out there, shake hands, do transactions, do deals, and thinking that if we operated correctly and bought right, it would just attract people and money and capital, and we really weren't putting our name out there. We really weren't tooting our horn. You don't want to be boastful and things like that. So we get that, but it wasn't until like the end of last year, we had about almost 800 doors. Then we're like, man, if we want to scale the company and kind of pull ourselves out, we have to be able to bring on partners and bring in capital. And no one really knows us. Like we have these, we're great operators, but our name's not really out there. And so I think for us, like we had to shift our mindset from just 3 dudes out there hitting the pavement and buying properties to, no, we need to, be intentional with our branding and hire on marketing and, get into like, the 21st century and get across like social media, things like that. So that's been probably one of the biggest gotcha lessons for sure.
You mentioned social media. What does that mean though? When you say, we're going to market ourselves, what were some practical things that you guys did? You had to put a playbook together of some sort that said, all right, here's the plan. Now we're going to execute the plan. What was that?
Sure thing. So for one, we started a podcast. We're like, hey, we're gonna start a podcast and kind of talk about, so we had to define, okay, hey, so what are we gonna talk about? Who's our target audience? How can we bring them value? How can we show them who we are, and things like that. And with the podcast, Sam, that you can chop up that and then put out little snippets across different platforms. So that was one of the first things. Number two was we weren't even leveraging the basic platforms very well. I was on LinkedIn, but I wasn't being very creative or very intentional or very thoughtful with how I put out content. Like how I craft my message. Who do I want to talk to? Who do I want to bring into our world? So we had to start thinking about, okay, well, how does Instagram work? How does TikTok work? Because I guess if you're an older person, and I mean 30s, 40s, 50s, you can think that it's not useful, but everyone's on it, but the way you utilize it, you got to utilize Facebook differently because that's a different crowd. You got to utilize Instagram differently, and they're very powerful tools if you use them correctly. And so for us, I didn't even have an account up until the end of last year. And so I had to kind of shift my mindset and say, okay, well, everything we do, if we're filming content, or if, on the podcast, like behind the scenes, or if we're on a property doing a tour, or if I'm just at my desk, like analyzing a deal, everything's content. If I'm out lunch with an investor, get pictures, get videos, and then that way we can kind of edit it, modify it, and then send it out, and say, hey, this is what we're doing, guys. We're looking at this asset now. We're doing this, and I think by doing that, it helps people kind of understand who you are, your mindset, how you approach problems, and how you approach investing. Right? It's just like those simple things. Even LinkedIn, update it. Put a be more intentional with your title, so people can know who you are and what you're about. It's those small things. If your content isn't getting very much traction, it's probably boring, right? So you got to figure out, okay, well, am I talking to everybody? Because if I am, I'm talking to nobody, right? So you have to be very intentional, and then start figuring out, okay, well, what's the best way that I can craft a strong, creative, and valuable message for people.
I love what you're saying there. And this is a daunting task, I think, for all of us, just in the sense that figuring out how these platforms work, figuring out what the algorithms are, figuring out putting out an Instagram reel, putting out a Instagram story, whatever it is. And I'm with you. I'm 40 right now, and figuring out how Instagram works is the last thing I ever want to do.
Yeah.
I don't care how Instagram works. I don't have it. I think I have it on my phone. If I do have it on my phone, it's never open. So what do you say to those of us who are maybe in my boat? It sounds like maybe you were too. You said you didn't have the account until the end of last year. How do you do this without this just becoming another to-do, another black hole of time that you just endlessly pour into? And how do you know you're actually getting results?
So I would say two things. First was my mindset with it, was because I was like, oh, this is gonna be so pointless. I have to make some stupid videos, and it's gonna just waste my time. So first was mindset for sure, but what helped me with the mindset was we hired on a young marketing manager, right? And so she kind of came in and she was like, hey, this is how she kind of understood how each one. So there's three of us in Atlas, right? She helped kind of sit down over time and figure out, okay, well, Eli, this is how you think, and this is how you put stuff out best. Chris, this is how you do it. You're good in this format, and Nathan, you're good in this format, right? So she was able to kind of explain to us, hey, this is your this is how we're going to craft your campaigns. This is how we're going to present you to people, because you can't craft an inauthentic message, right? So she's like, hey, this is how you guys act and think and do stuff. So we're going to create the messages this way, and it will attract, partners and, views and people that you guys want to work with, right? So I'll be honest, it took time. It's taken many, many months to kind of transition and get us used to, okay, well, as like to see and understand, okay, well, yeah, these videos, some are corny, some are funny, but some are very, very serious, right? So depending on what you do and how you chop it up and put it out across the platforms, it's very powerful stuff. And so, it's taken us, a while, but now that we kind of figured it out, and we aren't perfect by any means, but now that we've trained our minds to think differently, now we're always out. Like if we're at a seminar or if we're at an event, it's like, hey, get content, film it, video it, get pictures. And then what's helped us out also is that we don't do it ourselves. So we just send it to her. So
Right.
I'll do videos and I'm like, hey, here you go. Even on the weekends, I'll wake up early and I'll go for walks or whatever. And then I'll talk about a subject that's on my mind. So maybe it might be mindset, it might be economics, it might be real estate. Well, I'll film a quick video and I'll send it to her, and then she'll make it all like, cool and jazzy. And then she'll put it out across, whatever, TikTok or, Facebook or whatever it is.
That's awesome, man. So you've given us two things here when you talked about, your marketing. You said your marketing was late, and then you guys worked really hard on getting your name out there. The first thing you did was you started your own podcast, which let's get a shameless plug here while we're on this. What is the name of your podcast?
Yeah, we're called The Real MF Guys.
Gotcha. The Real MF Guys. So you started your own podcast. Then you said number two was that you guys began to leverage the various platforms that are out there. And then is there a number three on that list for you?
Well, we hired a marketing manager. Like that was, so that was kind of a big thing, because we had, as our company was growing, we're okay, well, do we have the kind of funds we need to hire people, right? So we're trying to pull ourselves out of working in the weeds to working on the company, right? And not necessarily like in the company. And so one of the big things we did that really changed things for us was, okay, our first hire under Atlas was hiring a marketing director.
And that's a big move. Is this somebody that is based locally to you? Is it somebody right there? You're in the DFW area. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Is that somebody right there locally, or is it somebody that you hired online, or how did that position come about? And then how did you know who the right hire was?
It's kind of funny. It's kind of serendipitous in a way. We were so at that point where we were kind of talking about growing the company and scaling, and kind of hiring people on, who we want to hire first. We were at a random meetup, and we met this little like 22-year-old female. She came in, started talking to us, and she's big on marketing, and so she wanted to learn how multifamily works, and we needed marketing. And we started talking like over the next like week or two, and realized that we had really good chemistry. She's pretty driven, we're pretty driven. And we said, hey, okay, well, this is what we're thinking. We can help you learn, and help you learn and grow. If you want to help, like help us market our deals and raise capital, you can be in the deal as a GP, so that helps you out, right? And you can learn from us, and then we can use like your skills as well. And so it was very symbiotic in that manner.
That's awesome. And I think bringing somebody on in the marketing position that maybe doesn't have a background in commercial real estate can be really valuable, just in the sense that because we think that everyone knows what we know, right? There's like this idea that like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, I know how to buy an apartment, but no, people don't. They don't know the most basic steps of like, wait, how do you guys buy apartment? How? I don't even know the first thing to do. So I think it's actually in its own right kind of cool that somebody came on that maybe doesn't understand it, because they get to bring a fresh lens for content and for putting you guys out there saying, hey, or fresh views saying, hey, you know what, we're going to break this down to some really just kind of elementary steps that probably most people want to hear about, that you and I maybe think, nah, nobody wants to hear about this, but when in fact they actually do.
Yeah. It's not without sin, right? So I mean, because she was so new. I mean, she's been with us now for 8-9 months or whatever it is. But we've had to kind of like train her and mentor and lead her, because maybe she's like maybe we're in a phase during an acquisition where she's thinking that it's not important, or the deadlines or timelines are different, right? So we have to, like kind of remind her and constantly coach her and say, hey, no, like put this campaign down. We're working on this because this is more important. We have a day to do this or whatever. So but it's been, I think overall, like you said, it's been way, way helpful having someone come in and kind of figure out, how you guys think, how you guys operate, and be able to craft messages around that.
That's super cool. One of the things that you mentioned early on was that you guys have entered a growth phase of your company. How would you differentiate that from the previous phase maybe your company was in?
So for the last four years, we've just been kind of out there like buying properties, right? Thinking that, we're going to go and every property we buy is going to increase our wealth. And we really didn't have the idea of, scaling the company. So there's a difference between buying assets and then growing a real estate investing company. And I guess because like this, it's not really widely talked about in the industry. Like everyone, like all these groups, podcasts, on the books, they talk about how to buy apartments and how to build your wealth. But then like when you get to a certain level, we kind of realize like, man, we're running around with our heads cut off, and we have only 800 doors. And how's it going to look when we're at 2,000, or when we're at 10,000, if we're at 5,000
Right.
doors plus new development and storage units. So what's our plan to actually pull ourselves out of the weeds and become the CEOs of the company? And so I think that's kind of one of the things that we had to kind of step back at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. We said, okay, well, in order to do this, we have to figure out what we enjoy, what we're good at, and then what you think I'm good at, also as partners. And then everything else, we're going to start hiring out over time. We don't really have the capital to hire out like everything, like all at once. But we were in a phase where we've been buying properties, we got enough capital, we could hire out a few positions and then kind of plan on doing more over time. So that's kind of like what we were thinking about.
Got it. Yeah. And I love that. Kind of, it's an iterative process, but as you grow, thinking, okay, we're going to have to shift gears from just acquiring assets to now going, wait, we're actually building something here. And I'm going to have to focus on the structure that we're building as much as I am what we're putting in that structure. Whereas before, it seems like you could have just a few assets and like, okay, we can all run around helter skelter. And then at some point you go, wait, we have to put some framework to this if we want it to grow. If you could rewind the tape 3-4 years, what is one piece of advice you would give yourself? And maybe the other way to think about that is, what is one thing you would do differently if you could rewind 4 years?
Do differently? Well, there's probably two things. I'd probably say for sure, start marketing earlier. I think a lot of people who come in this space, this is kind of a male dominated like industry. It is. There's plenty of female in here, but I think a lot of it's just these operator mindset dudes who come in and they just want to buy stuff, do transactions, and they don't really put themselves out there. And that's how kind of we were, at least. And I could be wrong, but that's kind of how we thought, at least. So I would say, I wish I would have started and kind of told my journey from the very first beginning. Back when I was in the military and I was about to get out and I started my company, I started buying, like houses, and then we transitioned it into multifamily. I was still in the military back then, right? And so I think that was kind of a really powerful story that I really didn't capture at the time. I could have been doing blogs, videos, things and kind of talking about that, like, hey, like I've got like this, this government military, job mindset or whatever, but I'm doing this, right? So the marketing for sure. And then probably number two is like raising capital. I think people are kind of taught that if your deal is good enough, the money will just flow in. And that's such a fallacy, that because if nobody knows, likes, and trusts you, they will not give you a damn dime, regardless of how good like the deal is. So, I wish, but if I could have done it, I would have been more intentional with, meeting people, not, like trying to build, deep friendships with them, putting our voice out there, and that way we would have had like a bigger platform to raise capital for our deals.
That is awesome. Very, very good advice. Eli, I've certainly appreciated having you on the show today. This was lots of fun just hearing your guys' story. You've given us some great insight and some very actionable steps there, from starting a podcast, leveraging platforms, bringing on marketing managers. You've explained to us very clearly what the early phase of your business is, and now kind of how you guys are in growth phase and how you're thinking through that. And you, again, kind of tying all that together, you gave us kind of the steps, if you rewind the tape a few years, that how you would do things just slightly differently. So this has been tons of fun having you on the show today. I certainly appreciate it. If our listeners want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to do that?
You can do it one of two ways. You can go to our website, investwithamg.com, or reach out to me through my email, eli@investwithamg.com.
Fantastic. Eli, thank you again for your time today. I certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely, Sam. Thank you so much.